Gravel cut into Emma's bare feet as she ran, her breath sharp in the freezing night. Shadows stretched behind her, monstrous in the dim light. Thomas shouted, "Stop her! She carries the sin." Fear clawed her throat as branches scraped her arms. The compound walls loomed, tall and merciless, their wooden gates bolted shut. She whispered, "Please, let me wake up." But the nightmare stayed. Sarah's voice hissed from the dark, "Freedom is blasphemy, sister." Emma's pulse thundered as a locked door slammed somewhere behind her, sealing off every path. The silence that followed was worse than the chase, as though the cult's eyes pressed against her skin. A crow burst from the trees, its wings slicing the night. Emma gasped, clutching her ribs, her body breaking under panic. Thomas's torch beam sliced across her face, and his voice carried false calm. He said, "The leader waits for you." Every word fell like a chain tightening around her, dragging her back into the cage she thought she had escaped. Emma stumbled through the darkness, the gravel cutting deeper into her feet. She whispered, "Keep moving," though her body screamed for rest. Sarah's voice drifted behind her, soft as a hymn but edged with menace. Thomas growled, "She cannot flee the chosen path." The forest pressed in, each tree like a sentry watching her desperation. The night air carried smoke, the smell of burning wood mixed with fear. She thought of the gates, the chains, the voices that declared her life no longer her own. Her chest heaved as she prayed for silence, yet the sound of footsteps grew louder. She remembered the leader's words, "There is no world beyond these walls." But her heart insisted there must be. She clutched her torn dress, feeling the dirt grind into her palms. The world seemed to shrink to the sound of her breath and the echo of pursuit. A single thought pierced the terror. Freedom was worth every wound. The air thickened with dread as Emma reached a clearing. A circle of stones stood like a forgotten altar, moss clinging to their rough edges. She whispered, "This place knows their cruelty." A rustle behind her froze her steps. Thomas's torch lit the treetops, his voice carrying, "You can run, but salvation finds you." Sarah sang a verse, her tone eerily sweet, twisting faith into a trap. Emma's heart hammered against her ribs as she crouched behind a stone. Every breath felt like thunder. The wind pressed cold fingers against her face, carrying the chant from the compound. She thought of Michael, the boy who once promised to escape but never returned. Her whisper cracked, "Not me, not tonight." She pressed her palm to the earth, grounding herself against despair. In the distance, the compound bell rang, a sound that marked her absence, a signal that the hunt had begun. The clearing pulsed with silence after the bell's toll. Emma pressed her back to the stone, listening. Sarah's song rose higher, a melody that promised love, but carried chains. Thomas roared, "The leader's light will find her." Emma closed her eyes, memories flashing of long nights kneeling on frozen ground, her body shaking under doctrine. She remembered Michael's smile before it vanished into the leader's wrath. She whispered, "I will not kneel again." Her body trembled, not from faith, but from fury. The trees swayed, branches creaking like voices warning her to run. Her hand clenched into a fist, nails digging into her palm. For the first time, the fear twisted into resolve. The path forward was shadowed, but it was hers. She opened her eyes, stared into the darkness, and forced her body to move. The forest thinned, revealing the riverbank. The moon cast trembling silver across the water. Emma staggered toward it, whispering, "Freedom waits across." Behind her, Thomas's torchlight flickered closer. Sarah's hymn broke into a scream, "Do not forsake us." The river roared like salvation and doom. Emma stepped into the icy current, the shock tearing breath from her chest. She thought of the leader's words, "Water cleanses sin," and spat them into the night. The current pulled at her legs, dragging her deeper. She whispered, "Better the river than the cage." Thomas shouted, "She belongs to us." His voice cracked with rage as torchlight glared at the shore. Emma's arms flailed, the water swallowing her cries. But in that moment of drowning fear, her heart lifted, for this choice was hers alone. Emma sat on the dirt floor, knees drawn to her chest, remembering the first day she arrived at the compound. She had been broken then, hollow from grief. The leader smiled with false warmth, saying, "You are safe here." His words wrapped around her emptiness like a net. Sarah touched her shoulder, whispering, "We are your family now." Emma's eyes filled, desperate to believe. She had carried loneliness like a stone, heavy and relentless. When Thomas handed her bread, his gaze was firm but kind. She thought she had found belonging. The nights were filled with songs that promised healing, each note a bandage on invisible wounds. Emma whispered, "Maybe this is what love feels like." She mistook obedience for care, silence for peace. But deep inside, a small voice asked if freedom had been traded too cheaply. That voice was drowned by the sound of hymns echoing from the walls. Emma remembered how the leader spoke of healing. His voice was silk, weaving scripture into promises. He said, "You were lost, but I have found you." She trembled, desperate for meaning. Sarah leaned close, whispering, "He sees your pain." The compound sang, their voices lifting like a single body of faith. Emma's heart swelled, fragile hope blooming. She thought of her mother's absence, the silence of a house where no one called her name. Here, every word promised belonging. Thomas placed a hand on her shoulder, stern but grounding, saying, "Your place is among us." Emma smiled faintly, not from joy but from relief. The hall smelled of wood smoke and sweat, yet it felt like sanctuary. She told herself this was home. But even then, she noticed the leader's eyes scanning the crowd like a predator choosing prey. That flicker unsettled her, though she buried it quickly beneath devotion. The memory of that first night returned. Emma knelt with others on the cold floor, her body shivering as the leader's hymn began. The words were simple, yet heavy with promise. Sarah whispered, "Bow lower, he is divine." Emma pressed her forehead against the wood, her tears soaking into it. She felt the weight of silence around her, broken only by chants that rose and fell like waves. Thomas walked among them, correcting postures with firm hands. He muttered, "Discipline is love." Emma's chest ached, but she believed. She had spent years searching for purpose, and here was a voice declaring she had one. The song swelled, drowning out doubt, replacing fear with something like surrender. She whispered, "I belong." But as her eyes lifted for a moment, she saw the leaders smiling too wide, watching their submission with hunger. Something twisted in her stomach, though she forced it away. Emma recalled the meals. Bowls of thin stew passed from hand to hand, each follower murmuring thanks to the leader. She whispered, "Thank you," though her voice shook. Sarah nudged her gently, saying, "Gratitude brings favor." Thomas sat across the table, eating with strict silence, his eyes scanning for disobedience. Emma's stomach growled, yet she felt guilty for hunger. The leader's voice floated above the clatter of spoons, saying, "Food is a blessing only for the faithful." She lowered her head, convinced her survival was earned by obedience. The room smelled of boiled roots and smoke, but she tasted belonging more than stew. Her chest warmed, mistaking control for comfort. She thought of the world outside, where no one shared meals with her. Here, every spoonful was heavy with devotion. Yet when she caught the leader's gaze across the table, she saw no love in his eyes, only possession. Emma remembered the night Sarah sat beside her, voice low and tender. Sarah said, "We are your sisters now. Your blood is ours." Emma's chest tightened, wanting it to be true. She had wandered so long without family, her soul starving for connection. Sarah held her hand, eyes warm with sincerity, but her words echoed doctrine. Emma whispered, "I don't want to be alone anymore." Thomas's voice cut from the shadows. "Alone is death." The leader entered then, his steps soft yet commanding. He looked at Emma, smiling as though he had created her anew. He said, "You are reborn in us." Her heart ached with fragile joy, desperate to accept the lie. In that moment, Emma believed she had found love, not realizing it was a chain. The hall filled with chants, voices weaving her into their net. She whispered, "I am yours," her soul trembling. Morning light never felt free inside the compound. Emma knelt in the dirt yard with dozens of others, her knees bruised raw. Thomas walked between the lines, his staff striking the ground with sharp authority. He barked, "Lower, devotion is measured by your spine." Sarah whispered beside Emma, "Do not anger him." The leader sat on a raised platform, robes glowing white against the rising sun, his smile both radiant and cruel. He said, "Discipline is your salvation." Emma bowed lower, dust choking her lungs. Her chest ached, yet she obeyed. The chants rose, voices trembling in fear rather than faith. Emma's mind screamed, but her lips whispered the words taught to her. Each syllable felt like a chain tightening around her soul. She glanced sideways at Sarah, who pressed her forehead deeper into the ground. Emma whispered, "This cannot be love," though the sound was lost beneath the chants. The days blurred into rituals. Emma scrubbed stone floors until her fingers bled, each motion a prayer demanded by the leader. Sarah murmured, "Pain cleanses the spirit." Thomas watched from shadows, arms crossed, his presence heavy as iron. The leader's voice filled the hall, echoing like thunder, "Suffering is love. Obedience is proof." Emma's chest tightened, every word cutting deeper. She remembered laughter once, far away, now a foreign sound. Her reflection in the water bucket startled her. Hollow eyes, cracked lips, a stranger. She whispered, "This is not who I was." Sarah squeezed her arm, eyes firm with devotion, saying, "You are being remade." Emma's body shook with exhaustion, yet she kept scrubbing, fearing punishment. The hall smelled of soap and sweat, the air thick with forced silence. Chains of ritual bound her tighter than walls ever could. She whispered to herself, "I am disappearing." Emma's nights became prisons of repetition. At dusk, they gathered in the circle, chanting words stripped of meaning. The leader stood in the center, torchlight painting his silver hair in gold. He said, "Your voices bind you to truth." Sarah swayed beside Emma, eyes closed in rapture. Thomas's glare swept across the group, daring silence. Emma whispered the chants, her throat burning, her heart hollow. She remembered her mother's lullabies, tender and human, nothing like these songs of control. She thought, "I am no longer singing, I am drowning." The fire cracked, shadows leaping against walls like spirits. The leader lifted his arms, smiling as if every voice fed him. Emma's lips kept moving, but inside she screamed. Her fingers clenched in her lap, nails digging into skin. The chant thundered louder, each note pressing down like a weight. She whispered, "Please, let me remember who I am." Punishments became sermons. One evening, a boy named Daniel was dragged into the yard. His crime was whispering of escape. The leader declared, "Doubt is disease." Thomas gripped Daniel's arms, face like stone. Sarah whispered to Emma, "Pray for him." Emma's stomach twisted as the boy cried, "I only wanted to see the river." The leader raised his staff, striking the earth with thunder. He said, "The river is death, only I am life." Emma wanted to run, but fear held her. Daniel's sobs echoed, a warning carved into memory. Emma pressed her hands to her chest, whispering, "This is wrong." Yet she stayed silent. Sarah's eyes brimmed with tears, yet her lips whispered the leader's prayers. Emma's throat burned with the scream she did not release. Chains were not only iron, they were silence, obedience, fear. She whispered to herself, "Every punishment teaches us to vanish." The nights after punishment grew heavier. Emma lay awake on her cot, the compound silent except for distant hymns. She stared at the ceiling, whispering, "I cannot endure this." Sarah lay nearby, her eyes open, whispering, "Endurance is faith." Emma turned, tears streaking her cheeks. She said, "Faith should not hurt this much." Sarah closed her eyes, lips trembling, but said nothing. Thomas's footsteps echoed outside, a reminder that even in sleep they were watched. Emma pressed her hand to her chest, feeling her heart's frantic beat. She remembered laughter, freedom, warmth, all now buried beneath stone and silence. The leader's voice still echoed in her skull. Obedience is salvation. She shook her head, whispering, obedience is death. The words terrified her, yet they felt true. In the dark, she realized the cage was not just wood and walls. It was inside her. The air inside the hall was heavy as the leader summoned them. Emma stood trembling, Sarah at her side, while Thomas blocked the exit. The leader's voice rang. A traitor walks among us. Emma's stomach dropped, fearing discovery. The crowd murmured prayers, eyes darting nervously. Sarah whispered, "Stay silent. Endure." Emma's heart raced, each beat like a hammer. The leader's smile twisted, saying, "Even family must prove their devotion." A boy stepped forward, Daniel, bruised and weak, forced to his knees. The leader declared, his sin was desire for the river. Thomas's grip tightened on Emma's arm, as if warning her. Emma whispered, "Please, no." The hall vibrated with chants. The leader raised his staff, his gaze sweeping the room until it landed on Emma. His eyes narrowed. He said, and some carried doubts within their hearts. Fear ripped through Emma, her soul exposed. The leader stepped down from his platform, each stride measured and heavy. He circled Daniel, voice calm yet venomous, saying, "Weakness poisons us all." Emma's chest heaved, unable to look away. Sarah whispered, "Do not speak." Thomas's eyes pinned Emma, his glare daring rebellion. Daniel whimpered, "I only wanted air." The leader crouched, lifting the boy's chin with 2 fingers. His smile stretched too wide, his eyes gleaming with cruelty. He said, "Your blood is the price of purity." Emma felt bile rise, her knees threatening to buckle. The chant swelled louder, drowning the boy's sobs. Emma whispered, "Stop," though no one heard. Sarah's nails dug into her arm, forcing her still. The leader raised his staff high, striking the ground with a thundering crack. He declared, "Sacrifice redeems." Emma closed her eyes, the sound of Daniel's cries carved deep into her soul. Later that night, Emma sat alone by the dim lantern glow, her hands trembling. She whispered, "I cannot unsee him." Sarah entered quietly, her face soft, yet her voice sharp. She said, "Do not let doubt consume you." Emma turned, pleading, "This is not salvation, Sarah." Sarah's lips pressed tight, eyes wet but unyielding. She said, "The leader is truth." Emma shook her head, whispering, "He feeds on us." Sarah's hand caressed her cheek, voice breaking, "I betray you to save you." Emma froze, horror crawling across her skin. Sarah's tears slipped, her love and loyalty twisted together. Emma whispered, "You would give me to him." Sarah kissed her forehead, whispering, "Better his chains than hell's fire." Emma's breath shattered, betrayal cutting deeper than any whip. In that moment, her only family became her executioner. The following day, Emma was summoned to the yard. Followers formed a circle, silent, their eyes empty. Thomas pushed her forward, his grip iron. The leader's voice rang, "Faithless hearts rot the body." Emma's knees shook as chants began. Sarah stood among them, her face streaked with tears, yet her lips moved with the chant. Emma whispered, "Why?" But her voice was drowned. The leader pointed his staff at her, declaring, "Confess your sin." Emma shook her head, whispering, "I only wanted to live." The circle tightened, shadows closing in. The leader's smile spread, his words falling like knives. "Then, you have already died." Emma's heart thundered, betrayal suffocating her. She looked at Sarah, who mouthed, "Forgive me." Emma's soul fractured, chains closing in not from walls, but from the faces she once called family. That night, Emma lay in the dark, every word of betrayal echoing inside her. She whispered, "She chose him over me." The air was suffocating, walls pressing closer. Thomas's steps outside reminded her she was watched even in silence. She remembered Sarah's touch, gentle and cruel, love wrapped in poison. Emma's heart cracked, grief and fury bleeding together. She whispered, "They will not bury me here." The leader's words haunted her. "You are already dead." Emma shook her head, tears streaking her cheeks. She whispered, "No, I am alive." The thought flickered like a spark, fragile but real. She clutched the edge of her cot, her nails digging into wood. She knew survival now meant rebellion. The betrayal had stripped her illusions. What remained was raw will. She whispered, "Tomorrow I choose." Night fell heavy on the compound, the silence broken only by the howl of distant wind. Emma sat on her cot, fists clenched, whispering, "This ends tonight." Sarah's face haunted her, love warped into betrayal. She pressed her hand against her chest, feeling her heartbeat hammering like war drums. Outside, Thomas's boots crunched against gravel, pacing like a predator guarding its prey. The leader's voice echoed in her mind. "Obedience is salvation." She spat the words into the darkness, whispering, "Obedience is death." A spark lit inside her, fragile yet burning. She rose, her bare feet silent on the wooden floor. She whispered, "I will not die here." The air smelled of smoke and ash, the compound asleep, but never free. Emma pressed her hand to the door, fear twisting with resolve. She knew she had no plan except to run. But running was survival, and survival was all that remained. Emma slipped from her cot, each creak of the wood like thunder in her ears. She whispered, "Quiet, quiet," forcing her breath to still. She pushed the door gently, its hinges groaning in protest. The night air hit her skin, sharp and cold. Thomas's shadow stretched near the gates, torch in hand, his gaze scanning the yard. Emma pressed herself against the wall, heart slamming. She whispered, "Move before he turns." The compound loomed silent, wooden huts dark, only the leader's house glowing faintly in the distance. She thought of Sarah's words, "Better his chains than fire," and shook her head. She whispered, "Better death than chains." Each step across gravel sliced her feet, but she kept moving. She glanced at the gates, the chains gleaming in moonlight. She whispered, "One chance." Fear pressed in, but her body moved, driven by raw desperation to taste freedom. Emma darted toward the storage shed, crouching low, her breath sharp. She whispered, "Please don't see me." Thomas's torchlight swept past, shadows leaping across the yard. Inside the shed, she pushed the door open, its wooden boards rough under her hands. The air smelled of hay and dust. She searched frantically, whispering, "Something, anything." Her hands closed around an old iron tool, heavy and cold. She whispered, "This is my weapon." The chants from the leader's hall echoed faintly, voices rising in worship. Emma's chest tightened, imagining Sarah among them, lips repeating chains. She whispered, "Not me." A noise outside froze her, Thomas's boots crunching closer. She pressed herself into the shadows, clutching the iron, her breath ragged. The door creaked, torchlight spilling inside. Thomas's voice growled, "The night hides nothing." Emma's grip tightened. Her choice was no longer silence. It was fight or death. Thomas stepped into the shed, torchlight filling the space. His voice rumbled, "You cannot run from salvation." Emma rose slowly, iron tools shaking in her hand. She whispered, "I will not kneel again." Thomas's eyes narrowed, his staff raised. He growled, "Disobedience is death." Emma's chest burned, her legs trembling, yet she stood tall. She said, "Then let it be." Thomas lunged, torchlight flaring, his shadow swallowing her. Emma swung with all her strength, the iron striking wood as he blocked her. Sparks flew, the sound sharp and final. He roared, forcing her back, but Emma's eyes blazed. She whispered, "I am not yours." The clash of wood and iron echoed like thunder in the small shed. Dust rained from the beams, air choking with smoke and fear. Emma's heart pounded, Her body screamed to flee, yet something inside demanded she fight. The fight spilled into the yard, Emma gasping as Thomas drove her back. His voice thundered, "The leader owns your soul." She shouted, "He owns nothing." Her words split the silence, startling even herself. Torches flickered as followers stirred from huts, their eyes wide with confusion. Sarah emerged, her face pale, whispering, "Emma, stop." Emma's breath tore from her chest, swinging the iron again, sparks flying as it struck Thomas's staff. She screamed, "I will not die in chains." Thomas snarled, shoving her hard, but she stumbled and rose, fire blazing in her eyes. The leader's voice carried across the yard, calm yet terrifying, "Bring her to me." Emma's chest heaved, her body breaking, but her spirit soared. She whispered, "I am free, even if I fall." Around her, silence thickened, the first crack in the cult's wall of fear. Emma stumbled beyond the compound walls, the night air cold against her bruised skin. Her chest heaved, each breath tearing like fire. She whispered, "I made it out." Behind her, the torches flickered faintly, the chants echoing like ghosts. Sarah's face haunted her, a tearful whisper that still burned. "Better his chains than fire." Emma shook her head, whispering, "Better scars than chains." Her feet bled from gravel, each step leaving a trail of crimson across dirt. The moon glowed pale, bathing the forest in silver, but shadows pressed close, memories clawing her mind. She pressed her hand against her ribs, pain stabbing deep, yet she kept moving. Every branch crack was Thomas's boots, every rustle the leader's voice. She whispered, "They cannot follow me here," though she did not believe it. The world felt vast, terrifying, but it was hers again. For the first time, her fear belonged to her alone. Emma collapsed at the riverbank, her body shaking from exhaustion. The current roared beside her, silver under the moonlight. She whispered, "You carried me once, carry me again." Her reflection rippled in the water, hollow eyes, cracked lips, but alive. She pressed her hands into the dirt, grounding herself against despair. The wind carried faint echoes of chants, as if the cult's grip reached even here. She whispered, "I am not theirs." A memory of Daniel's cry returned, his voice pleading for air, and guilt ripped through her chest. She whispered, "I will carry you with me." Tears mixed with mud on her face. Her body trembled, her mind fighting to believe in freedom. The water surged, steady and endless, reminding her that the world was larger than their walls. She whispered, "I belong to the river now," her voice breaking with fragile hope. Dawn broke faintly, the horizon painted in bruised colors of gray and orange. Emma sat curled beneath a tree, shivering, her arms wrapped around her knees. She whispered, "I survived the night." The forest smelled of damp earth, dew dripping from branches. Birds stirred in the distance, their calls alien after years of chants. She whispered, "This sound is mine now." Yet shadows lingered in her chest, Sarah's betrayal, Thomas's fury, the leader's cruel smile. She pressed her forehead to her knees, whispering, "They will never leave me." Her ribs ached, her body trembling, but her breath was steady, proof of life. She thought of freedom not as joy, but as survival. Raw, scarred, unsteady. She whispered, "I will learn to live outside the walls." The sun broke slowly through trees, golden light spilling across her skin like fragile grace. Emma found herself on a dirt road, faint wagon tracks marking the way. She whispered, "The world is bigger than them." Her steps were weak, yet each one felt like defiance. In the distance, smoke rose from a village, and her heart clenched with fear and longing. She remembered the leader's words, "There is no world beyond these walls," and spat them into the dust. Her lips cracked, whispering, "Lies." She thought of Sarah's tears, Thomas's grip, Daniel's broken cry. They lived inside her like scars, carried wherever she went. But scars were proof of survival. She whispered, "I am still here." Her body trembled, the road endless, but the horizon called. She pressed her hand against her chest. feeling her heartbeat steady. For the first time, it did not echo with chance. It was hers alone, fragile, defiant, and alive. That night, Emma rested near the edge of the village, hidden among tall grass. Lantern lights flickered in windows, voices of families drifting softly on the wind. Her chest ached with longing, whispering, "This is what they stole from me." She remembered laughter, dinners, love, all crushed beneath chants and chains. She whispered, "I will never kneel again." The stars stretched vast above, endless and free, their silence healing where hymns had wounded. She thought of Sarah, whispering forgiveness even in betrayal. She whispered, "I release you." Tears blurred her vision, but her heart felt lighter. She pressed her palms into the earth, whispering, "I belong to the world again." The grass swayed around her, the village a fragile promise in the distance. Her breath slowed, steady, and calm. For the first time, sleep came not as a cage, but as a quiet surrender to peace. Emma entered the village at dawn, her steps unsteady. Villagers paused, eyes wide at her torn dress and bruised face. A woman whispered, "Where did she come from?" Emma's lips trembled, whispering, "From hell." The smell of bread drifted from open doors, foreign yet familiar. Children laughed nearby, their voices piercing her heart with longing. She whispered, "This is what they stole." An old man stepped forward, eyes cautious. He asked, "Are you safe?" Emma's chest heaved, answering, "I am alive." Her voice cracked like glass. The villagers exchanged glances, fear mixing with pity. Emma's knees buckled, yet she stood tall, refusing to kneel. She whispered, "I will never kneel again." The sunrise cast light across her face, warm and golden, yet shadows lingered beneath her eyes. The cult was behind her, but its scars were etched deep, carved into every word and breath. The villagers brought Emma water, bread, and a blanket. She held the cup with trembling hands, whispering, "Thank you." A woman touched her arm gently, saying, "You're safe here." Emma nodded, though the word safe felt fragile. She chewed slowly, each bite foreign after years of scarcity. Her stomach churned, her body struggling to accept kindness. She whispered, "It feels wrong to eat without prayer." Silence hung, her shame heavy. The woman said softly, "No one owns your gratitude here." Emma's chest tightened, tears welling. She whispered, "I forgot how freedom tastes." The villagers watched, their faces soft, yet their eyes searching for the weight of her story. Emma pulled the blanket around her, whispering, "They will come for me." The words silenced the room, fear rippling. But no torches burned here, no chants filled the air. Only the quiet rustle of life beyond chains. That night, Emma lay in a borrowed bed, staring at the ceiling. Lantern light flickered, shadows dancing like memories. She whispered, "I should feel free." Yet her chest burned with the echo of chants. She closed her eyes, hearing Thomas's voice. "The leader owns your soul." She whispered, "No, he does not." But the words felt fragile. Sarah's face appeared in her mind, eyes wet, lips whispering prayers. Emma whispered, "I release you, but you still haunt me." Tears slid across her temples, soaking into the pillow. The house creaked with warmth, but her body trembled as though shackled. She pressed her hands to her chest, whispering, "This is mine now." The silence stretched heavy, broken only by her uneven breath. She whispered, "Freedom is not peace. Freedom is scars." And with that truth, she drifted into restless sleep, dreams painted with fire and chains. Emma woke before dawn, her body drenched in sweat. She whispered, "I heard them." Her heart pounded, as if the chants still shook the air. She sat up, the room quiet except for the whisper of wind outside. She whispered, "It was only a dream." Yet the sound of footsteps lingered in her skull, heavy and relentless. She thought of the leader, his smile carved into her memory like a wound. She whispered, "He cannot touch me now." Still, her hands shook, nails digging into her palms. The blanket fell away, and she pressed her forehead to her knees, whispering, "They live inside me." The villagers stirred outside, voices soft, a world beginning with peace. Emma lifted her head, staring at the faint light of dawn through the window. She whispered, "I am free, but I will never be untouched." Her voice cracked, heavy with truth. Days later, Emma stood at the edge of the village, fields stretching wide before her. The wind tugged her hair, carrying scents of wheat and earth. She whispered, "I am not theirs anymore." Her body still bore bruises, her soul scars, but her feet stood on open ground. She thought of Daniel's cries, Sarah's betrayal, Thomas's fury, the leader's smile. They lived within her, but she had walked away. She whispered, "Only 2 of us made it out." Her words cut the wind, final and sharp. She pressed her hand to her chest, whispering, "I carry the rest." The sky stretched endless, blue and vast, a world unchained. Emma whispered, "I will never forget, and I will never kneel." Her eyes filled with tears, but her lips curved in fragile defiance. The cult was gone behind her, but its shadow would follow forever. Still, she walked forward.